Greetings, everyone. I promised that I was going to come back and lend my voice, share my thoughts on the Bob Marley movie, as well as the different subtopics that emerge because of this movie. Over here, I have some notes, some talking points, so I can at least stay on topic. But before I do so, I'm going to explain some things and ask some questions. So, first question is, whose idea was it to make this One Love movie? Because when you know who is behind it, then you'll understand the purpose or the goal of making such a movie. And I segue into the next question already, asking what was the purpose? What was hoped to be achieved by making this movie? And when we hear biopic, we expect it to be at least a true representation of someone's life. And this was far from it. It was just a snapshot. You got some visuals about who the man Bob Marley was, but a very small part of who this man was. And that's what I find to be very problematic. Okay, so what was the aim? In my opinion, the aim is to divide and conquer, the old traditional way of always separating people, families, or nations. Okay, and in spite of that, and again, before I go any further, I think the main purpose was to tarnish Bob Marley's legendary status. Okay, and please understand that sometimes it's your own family that's going to be used to do this. And the thing is, I don't want to judge Ziggy, because sometimes when you're approached, the way the thing is pitched, you can fall for it and not realize. And if you have some gateway open, gateway like resentment, or if there's some type of discord within the family, it's very easy for someone to recognize that and to come in and say, come, let me help you tell your story, and we're going to tell it from your lens. And sometimes when you are telling your story, for some reason, because we have prejudice and we have biases, we're going to tell it in a way that sometimes it doesn't encompass the whole truth. And I think this is what's going on with the Bob Marley movie. So my thing is, what was the purpose and who is behind making this movie? Now we hear that Ziggy had a lot of authority and could make a lot of decisions, but I beg to differ. Okay, so in this movie, so in spite of the intention to divide, to conquer, to create discord, and also to tarnish the image of Bob Marley, great things emerge. And Bob Marley, his whole life story, when you really think about it, from conception until the day he left this world, showed purpose rooted in pain. So let's start with this one. Bob Marley's mom or mother was 16 years old when she conceived him. I want you to think about this. His uncle was working on the estate of his father, who was 56 years old or thereabout. So a 16-year-old girl getting pregnant for a 56-year-old man, and I'm listening for someone to talk about this. Maybe someone did, but I didn't hear it. But here we have this relation, and it's not a relationship, because the 16-year-old girl was not in a position to say no. And whether that happened forcibly, or he approached her and offered her things, she was a child. Okay, and an adult took disadvantage of her, whether because she was poor or whether because she was vulnerable. It doesn't really matter. Okay, as I said, the uncle was working with this man, and who knows? It's so common for people to just give their children or give their, you know, vulnerable loved ones or family members to people because of money. So we don't know the story. We're speculating, but what I'm not speculating about is she was 16 and he was in his 50s. Okay? Out of this union, a legend was born. Purpose was already there because the great source, the universe, or the great spirits always can use any situation for purpose. And so a legend was born from this kind of relationship. And I'm going to segue into saying that Cindy Breakspear, one of his loves, met him. They got together and they produced Damian Marley. And in the movie, Damian Marley is not featured, and neither is Cindy. And see, so you can see this as a whole part of that journey. It's people are taken out. People who have critical roles in Bob Marley's life is removed for whatever reason, and I think that has to do with the divide and the conquer. So the focus of this movie is about his life as this, great artist, but someone's intention is not pure. Okay, so we got Bob Marley coming from a relationship, whether it was forced, and I see how that young lady could have been taken disadvantage of in that scenario, but it doesn't change anything right now. Purpose was born. Okay, and as I said, through the union with Cindy, Bob Marley had a rebirth. I'm going to say here that if of all the children that Bob Marley has, and all the women who, we're not really hearing about these women, we're just hearing about these women being juxtaposed against each other. But of all the children, Damian Marley is Bob Marley reborn. Ziggy Marley is that one love side of Bob Marley. But Damian Marley is a true revolutionary. The one that this One Love movie did not want to present. Because you see, the agenda is to present the man as this person who was so docile, so soft, and he was far from that. He was a revolutionary man. His music speaks to it. And when you look at Ziggy's music, it's, that sweet side that oftentimes we are asked to, be ever forgiving, to forget the things of the past. Bob Marley was a legendary person. He was a revolutionary man. But that's not the image of Bob Marley that is presented. That's not the image that is celebrated right now. It's that image where he, first and foremost, is seen as a man who has no self-control. See, a man must not be judged just by his nature, his human nature, or his impulses, or weaknesses for that matter, but for his works. And this video is not long enough for me to talk about the works of Bob Marley. I don't want to go into that. I'm going to also say that, you see, in the divide and conquer, people want to present Rita and Cindy as sworn enemies, and they were not. I've seen interviews with Cindy saying that she was invited back someplace in Miami when Bob was sick, and Rita invited her to come and bring Damian and stay in the same household. And she talks about, when he was getting ill and towards the very end, how they both cared for him. They were both there for him. It's very clear that Bob Marley loved Rita, but he loved Cindy also. Now, I don't want to debate the whole idea of love and the word love and whatever, but whatever relationship he had with both women was very meaningful to him. He was married to Rita and he chose not to divorce her. So that means something. And he was with Cindy, and she was not a dirty secret because he had her on television being interviewed. That's why these folks were referring to them as Beauty and the Beast. It was a relationship to the very end. He supported her and she was there for him. We have to say, if you want to measure love and commitment and all of that, 4 months after Bob Marley passed away, Cindy got married to Tom Tavares. And I think 4 years after he passed away, Rita had another child with someone else. The idea here is to present Bob Marley as a very weak person. It doesn't celebrate the true essence of who he is. So the whole idea that this one or that one couldn't have acted in the role, the only person who could essentially act and present the role and the essence of Bob Marley would be one of his kids, and I think Damien would be a great person. Now, I'm not saying that Damien was approached or wasn't approached. I don't know the details of that. I'm just saying that Damien is that rebirth. When you listen to Damien Marley's music, he's the only one of the Bob Marley children who has that true revolutionary spirit. And if you look at even some other reggae artists who start out, and I'm not going to name names here, but start out with burning fire, these individuals, when they started to be embraced and celebrated in other parts of the world, they watered down the fire because they want to be commercial, they want to be accepted, but not Damien Marley. It is very clear that something is going on with the family. There is some kind of discord with the family, and it is coming out with the way Ziggy, made the comments on his socials, defending his mother and explaining what his mother went through. And as a woman, I can just imagine how painful that would be for a woman to, share her husband with someone else, or, not have her love reciprocated the way she would have liked to. But I want us to get away from the narrative that Bob was married to Rita and she was the only woman in his life. She was not. And at the time when he was dating Cindy, he was separated from Rita a lot. Rita knew, and I think at times when he was with the other women, Rita was just seen as somebody who not just loved him, but I think Bob trusted her. And she was just a woman who didn't give up on her marriage. The people who are trying to demonize Bob Marley, please understand that he's African. His ancestry is also African as much as it is European, because his mother being a black woman and his father is white. We cannot dismiss that. Okay, and in Africa, many parts of Africa, polygamy is a real thing. So when we are looking through European standards and we're trying to say, oh my gosh, how could he do this horrible thing to Rita? When even this day, people who are criticizing him, they're in relationships where they're sharing their partner with other men. Sorry, other women or men. In this time, it's possible. Sharing their partner with other individuals. And yet they're up in arms to make it seem like these things that he did in his intimate relationship defines who he was as a man, and it doesn't really define him. I'm not trying to undermine the importance of marriage and commitment, but there's a lot of complexities that we sometimes don't really know the whole details about. Okay, don't allow the people, individuals in the world who refuse to let a black man die with his legendary status. They always do it. And because he passed when he was very young, they never had a chance to destroy that. And so this movie is aiming to do that, to remind you, look, he was not that great. Look what he did to this woman or these women. You know, that is at the heart of these discussions. People will do what is necessary to relegate the African man to that place where he ceases to be seen as powerful. Take that into note. Okay, now when you're studying literature or English for that matter, we look at symbols and imagery and metaphors used to convey messages. And in this movie, it is as clear as day. This One Love movie does it effortlessly to create a narrative that causes people to have a negative way of viewing this man. Damian Marley is the only one who continues that work. The only one who's connected to Africa in the same way his father was. The only one of all the Marleys to be bringing that bold message. He doesn't water down the message. He's not afraid. And so the work that he's doing, people don't want to align with his message because they don't want to send a message to other persons that, you know, having a revolutionary spirit is a good thing. It's a one love, one heart. Get together and celebrate. That's the message that is being encouraged. And while nothing is wrong with that message, if everyone felt that way, one love, everybody loving each other and embracing each other, no, it is the African who's encouraged all the time to just be in that one love state of mind. Everything Irie, everything Chris. And it's a dangerous message. Don't want to drag this out too much. I just want to reiterate that the idea of divide and conquer presented itself very much in this, and that Bob Marley came from a situation, this unequal relationship between his mother and that man, and he was produced. And then it just seemed like purpose took form, and he met this Caucasian woman and gave birth to himself. You know, all his children are to be mentioned, but some are elevated and some are relegated to the back. Whether he loved all the other women that he was with, or he just loved these two women, they're important parts of his past. And we all shouldn't really take it too personal. He loved these women in his own way. And until the day he passed, you nor I was there to take care of him. Just like we were not there, you know, in his love life or his relationship. And we really should be taking it so personal. It's hard not to, because we look at it as a wife. If you are married, you take it personal because you're thinking, oh my, if my husband did all these things to me, I'd be so devastated, I'd be so angry, I'd be hateful. But we shouldn't be. We should understand the purpose of this movie and ask yourself the question, who's behind it? And what do they hope to achieve? But it was written and performed, and people went to see it, and people are talking about it. And guess what? The train cannot be stopped, because guess what? He did his work already, and he has transcended. And no number of negativity that comes out now is going to change the fact that he's a legend, and that his work will continue for generations to come, and his children hopefully will come together and understand it and do not allow themselves to be used, or do not allow money or whatever situation that might be going on to separate them. And this The children of Rita need to not send a message to the world, because this is their brother that was produced or born from this relationship. Do not send that message to the world that you're broken. That's what they want to see. Rita accepted it, otherwise she would have left. Rita loved him throughout all of that. And I don't think, especially when we hear stories about how, Bob is in concert and he caused Rita to remove women from his bed. It's clear that he was that bold because he felt like he was free. I'm sure he would have expressed his will to be free. And then you see interviews with him saying that he's not married, deny the fact that he was married. So, when we're going to hit upon Cindy, we have to remember that they lived through all of that. And they moved on after the fact. And it doesn't change the fact that all these experiences enrich them to this day, not just financially, but spiritually. Another movie needs to be made to tell the real story, the true story, and not to just focus on the one love story, but the true revolutionary man that he really was. And he lives on through his children. I listen to Bob Marley, and sometimes when I close my eyes, it's Bob I hear. Bob is still here through his kids. His spirit lives on. So Bob was born through that situation, 16-year-old girl with this older man. And I don't hear people talking about that too much. And his son Damien was born with Cindy. And we cannot ignore that. We cannot take it too personal. It's not our life story. And as offensive as it might seem to some people, it's not for us to join in encouraging that kind of divide and conquer. It's just not good. Anyway, I'm not going to draw this out any further. Thank you for watching. Stay blessed.